Ever since I began having children, my biggest fear was having a break-in around Christmas time and all of the gifts would be stolen. I guess when people say don't overthink your fear because one day it might come true was real. But it wasn't the gifts that they wanted. It was the night before Christmas and my 3 kids loved staying up all night to see if Santa would come and put more presents underneath the tree. Normally, my husband would dress up and pretend to be Santa, but that year he visited his grandmother who didn't have that much time left to live. Without breaking their belief, I locked their doors from the outside so they wouldn't be able to stay up and see if Santa was coming. Side note, my 3 boys were 14, 8, and 6. My 14-year-old didn't care, so I didn't need to lock his door. Also, his friends slept over because his parents didn't celebrate the holiday. I went to sleep pretty early that night. While I was sleeping, I was constantly woken up by the boys and told them to go to sleep. As it got quiet and I was finally going back to sleep, I heard glass breaking in the living room. I just thought it was the boys, so I didn't think much of it and went to sleep. When it was morning, I was woken up by my oldest and his friend who was in a panic, shaking me, screaming, "They're gone." I asked them what was going on and my son explained that he didn't want his younger siblings to believe in Santa anymore, so he unlocked their doors and told them to stay up late to see if Santa was coming. They told me they heard glass breaking and thought it was the kids, but the back door was completely shattered. I jumped out of bed and ran throughout the house yelling for them to come out. After what felt like forever looking for them, I called the police and reported them missing. My husband was getting back on a plane and I went through the neighborhood searching for them. I even drove around town looking. After multiple days, the whole town started to help look for them. Weeks went by and I began losing hope until my next-door neighbor disappeared. While the police were looking into their disappearance, they searched her house and found mine and multiple other kids that went missing throughout different states. My neighbor never came back. When my kids came home, they told me they opened presents, ate, played games, and were told we were gone on vacation and she was babysitting them. They were unharmed even though that's what I paid her to do. Now she's gone and I guess I'll have to do the job myself.
Every year on Christmas Eve, a group of Christmas carolers would go around the entire town singing to people. Everyone would lock their doors because of the rumors the town made up. I live in a very big town, but everyone was so close you couldn't do anything without the whole town and a few towns over knowing. The rumor was that they were spirits and they all died while Christmas caroling, so they repeat the cycle every year, being stuck in a loop as ghosts. And that my house is the house they died at, which is why I'm always the last house they go to. Even though I'm in the middle of 2 houses, they'd skip mine and come back later. And you would never see them in stores or walking down the street, only on Christmas Eve. I never believed in the paranormal, so I just assumed I was last because I was one of the very few that would open the door and allow them to sing. The only thing I couldn't explain was how year after year they began to look more unwell and dirty, as if they were deteriorating. I would ask around town if they had seen how bad they looked, and some couldn't answer because they would never go to their door, and others would say they look perfectly fine when they come to their house. This year was the worst I'd ever seen them. Usually, when they knocked, I would just open the door and they would start singing and I could never make small talk with them. But this year, when I saw how bad they looked, I interrupted their song asking them if they would like to come inside. They stopped singing and just stared at me smiling. Then they stopped smiling and just stood there. I lived alone, so it's not like anyone else could attest to what I saw. I immediately closed the door and locked it. I stood in front of the door, seeing through the glass door that they were still there. And suddenly they disappeared. I was shocked to see anyone just disappear right in front of my eyes. I got so freaked out that I tried to go straight to sleep. I locked my bedroom door and hid underneath my blanket like a little kid, again seeing the boogeyman in the closet. I eventually dozed off and went to sleep. I was later woken up by my alarm that I had set every morning at 6 a.m. But once I got up to hit snooze, I saw that it was 3 a.m. I never touched my alarm and it never set off before 6. I was so confused and scared, thinking of why my alarm could have gone off. I turned it off and tried going back to sleep when I heard footsteps coming towards my bedroom. The door was halfway open and I shouted that I had a weapon and was calling the cops if they didn't leave. Once I said that, it got quiet. Then, before I could get up, what sounded like 10 different footsteps started running towards the room. I jumped up and ran to shut my door and lock it. I could hear humming from the other side and then singing. It sounded like the Christmas carolers. But this time the lyrics of the Jingle Bells were changed. The lyrics were more ominous and different from the original. The lights began flickering and it felt like the ground was shaking. I held my hands against the door hoping whatever was out there wouldn't get in. Eventually, it stopped and everything went back to normal. My alarm went off again and it was 6 a.m. I still don't know how 3 hours went by that fast. I grabbed my shoes and phone and ran out of that house to my neighbors and told them everything that happened. My neighbors were big paranormal believers and started the rumor about the Christmas carolers. They told me why the rumor spread in the first place. The previous owner shot and killed multiple Christmas carolers on Christmas Eve when they showed up at his door. They said the person did it just because they were annoying and they hated Christmas. It all made sense as to why I was always the last house they would go to because that was the end of their life. It also explained why they looked like they were deteriorating. Since then I never spent Christmas at that house. I never researched it because of fear, but I am now a believer of the afterlife and I do believe those are the same people that died.